I'm Andy. I'm a data scientist, a software developer, and all-round techie.
I'm Dominique, Chief Product Officer at Eli Health.
I'm Lily Russo. I am a product manager for the past 8 years in financial services.
Hey, I'm Matt. I'm a dad of 4-year-old twins, former analytics leader at Facebook turned full-stack tech founder, learning how to build fast.
My name is William, and I'm applying to Lovable Ship because I really want to create something amazing for other people to use.
I think doing something like Lovable Shipped would be super fun to have a community and something around me to keep me even more accountable and have some feedback on what I'm doing.
Designing better rituals for how communities and how humans find connection again and how we as people come together, especially in this AI world, in this world of rapid change. I can get excited about tons of problems, and yeah, this feels like a now or never moment.
The opportunity I am a lot more energized by is completely rethinking the financial and accounting infrastructure, starting with ERP.
I'm looking to develop a hospital discharge app that helps frontline teams get the right information they need.
We're on a mission to transform how children and families manage chronic conditions like sickle cell disease. This started with our founder, a mom who was navigating years and years in and out of hospitals with her son. She didn't wait for the system to change. She started building.
Spent the last year as a founder of a travel startup, and I was grinding through the startup life the old school way. Great accelerators, pitch decks, way too much structure, and only in the last couple months did I discover vibe coding. Honestly, it's been a complete unlock. I feel like I can finally skip the gatekeepers and ship things myself.
All we need is love, Abel.
All you need is love.
Abel, baby. All you need is love, Abel. A little bit is all we need. Well, I guess you.
Hello. Welcome everybody to Lovable Shipped Lecture 1. So excited. Yay. Where is everyone from? Let me look in the chat to see where everyone's calling in from. I see Brazil, Kenya, California, Milan, Peru, New York, all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday. I am joined here by Chris Donnelly. He is going to be giving our first lecture. And before I introduce him, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping. Now, first, I have a very exciting announcement. Our first announcement is that applications are closed. And over the weekend, we had a Buddy Pass competition where the person who invites the most friends to join them on their Lovable Ship journey will get flown out to San Francisco for demo day. And a little drum roll for us, please. The winner of that is Kyle Balmer. So congratulations to him. He really crushed it. Like, it wasn't even close. So congratulations to him, and thank you everybody who participated. We're so excited to see everybody with their buddy passes and joining. Now, if you did not apply by literally like 30 minutes ago, you can still spectate all of the lectures, all of the fireside chats will be public. You will just not be eligible for any of our builder grants, but you can still come learn with us. So be sure to join our circle community, which is on the Shipped website. So if you go to our Shipped website, scan the QR code, you can join our circle community and hang out with us and just talk about what you're building. But you're not here to hear me talk and go on and on and on about all of these different housekeeping things. Make sure you're in the circle community, follow the announcements channel for other announcements throughout the week, as updates will go live on Friday, and additional information about that will be in the announcements channel. Now, let me introduce Chris Donnelly. He is a UK-based entrepreneur, founder, and content creator known for sharing practical advice on startups, leadership, and personal development, particularly for founders and creators. And today, he is going to tell you all about ideas and validating those ideas. We all have tons of ideas, but in today's day and age, we have to move quickly, validate them, and make sure they're actually good ideas. Because I don't think my Uber for dog walking idea is that great, but who knows? So, Chris, I will let you take it away.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. So today I'm going to talk about how to validate a business idea and how to think about the early stages of launching a company. So I am from the UK. I'm actually in Minneapolis at the moment, and so I'm actually in the US right now. But I'm going to go through essentially how to think about finding a problem, how to think about solving a problem. And I want to really touch on a lot of the businesses that I have spent time with over the years have really struggled with knowing what to build. You know, they're always sort of creating products and they're creating services that never seem to get the demand or the throughput or the revenue that they might expect. And so today we're going to focus on how to create demand and also how to validate an idea. So I'm just going to share my screen and let's get into it.
Let's go.
So can you see that okay? That all works? Just double check. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, let's get into it. So I wanted to actually start with, how do you build something that people actually want? It is the most common startup failure reason out there, that you spend a long time building something, you spend a long time thinking about the business, and when you actually launch it, no one wants to use it. And that's often because it's kind of been built in silo. And so just a brief intro on myself, but I have been building startups for about 15 years now. My first major business was a company called Verb Brands, which was an agency that did marketing and built products for other businesses. And I did that for 10 years, bootstrapped. I managed to build and exit that business at 29 years old, which was an awesome journey. I then went and built a health tech business with my brother for 4 or 5 years that reached a 9-figure valuation, a 100-person team. And that was quite the journey of continuously building technology and continuously getting our customers, which were care homes and care facilities, to use our technology and tell us what they wanted. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. And then nowadays I run a business called the Creator Accelerator, which I've effectively grown my social media to a point where I have about 3 million followers now, and I'm able to always launch new ideas and products to my audience. And if my audience like them, I'll go ahead and build them. So as we get into it, I'm going to talk about the idea of rapid product iteration, rapid audience iteration as well. And so why it all matters. 35% of startups fail due to a lack of market demand, and over 90% never make it out of the early stages. Most entrepreneurs spend their time building a product that they think is the right product, that they instinctively believe is the thing that's going to work for the customer. And yet my experience certainly has been that if you ask the customer, if you ask the desired customer what they want, they will tell you what they want pretty damn quickly. And so there's this quote here, which is, first-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution. And so building a great product that no one wants is one of the most expensive mistakes in business. And I can testify to this myself, which is my first business that we built. We spent 6 to 9 months developing the technology and the platform. And, a lot of money was spent building it. A lot of time was spent building it. And when we eventually launched it, out of all of the website that we built, which had taken, nearly a year from start to finish, this is a long time ago, obviously, way before things like Lovable existed. We realized that our customers only used 10% of the website. And so 90% of the whole construction and time we had spent never got used. And that is a perfect example of, we thought we knew better on the product. And so what you're more likely to do is focus on building something lightweight, an MVP, minimal viable product, something that works, something that is usable but isn't particularly complicated, and getting the customers' feedback quickly. And so I wanted to start in idea generation and what I like to call a rising tide market. And so I'm going to give you a little exercise that you can take away and think about, but this is a really famous example of a rising tide market. So Jeff Bezos was working full-time on Wall Street. He saw a report come across his desk in 1994 that stated that the use of web, as in the internet, obviously this is a long time ago, but the use of the internet was growing at 2,300% every year. So he quit his multi-million-dollar job and he launched Amazon. And we all know what Amazon went on to do. And so rising tides can kind of be found everywhere. And so you don't have to go and build a massive business. You can build a small business based upon consumer trend or technology trend. So I want to give you a couple more examples. Mobile phones were launched in 1985, and by 1990, there were 12.5 million mobile phones. The Apple Store launched in 2008, and by 2009, there were 2 billion apps. By 2010, there were 5 billion apps. And we all know, OpenAI launched in November 2022, and within 2 months, there was 100 million people. And so what I want to point out to all of you on this call and to anyone thinking about starting a business is that if you can position yourself to create a business, create a product within a market that's already rising, you are going to face so much more ease in everything that you do. Whereas, if right now, for example, you were launching an offline marketing business, you're going to struggle because the nature of marketing has completely changed to being, very much online. And so you want to try and position yourself in a market that is naturally rising. Consumers are naturally flocking to it. The behavioral change is moving. And so I wanted to talk through a little task that I always use when I think about starting a new business. So this is like a sped up version of what I used to do. So what I used to do is I used to go onto to Google, and I used to look for the most up-to-date consumer and technology reports that have been created by the big four consulting firms. And these big four firms are, Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, etc. They will spend millions and millions a year, thousands of analysts on creating the most amazing reports on consumer trends and technology. And that's probably not dissimilar to what the sort of report that Jeff Bezos saw all those years ago. And so nowadays it's quicker. You can just ask ChatGPT to go and find you the most recent consumer trend reports from the big four consulting firms. You want to try and, as an individual, you want to look to try and find a specific change in consumer behavior or a technology change. And it could be as big as, people are using AI a lot these days, which is what I was talking about before, but it could be as small as, I found one as an example just before this call, but Gen Z are drinking 20% less alcohol than the generation before them. And that's like a tiny consumer behavior, consumer change. So as an entrepreneur, when I look at that, I go, as a business, that's probably, now that I'm 15 years in, I've sold 3 companies, I'm probably not going to pursue that because I want to pursue bigger problems. But if I was an earlier stage entrepreneur, I might be looking at that and going, what are the implications off the back of that as a consumer change? So the next step is you want to try and look for consumer insights and consumer pain. And so websites like Reddit or niche communities are incredible for this. People will effectively vent online about the problems that they have, about the challenges they're having within a certain space. And so if I can relate this back to my own example of my current business. So my current business teaches entrepreneurs how to build personal brand. And I do it through a cohort. And at the very beginning of my launching this business, I put out effectively a wait list onto my website. And it was said, if you want to sign up to a cohort where I will train 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs, register your interest here. And at the same time, I was looking on all these forums. And the number one thing I found in business is that if you ask a founder what their biggest challenge is, it's always sales and marketing. And so I was like, okay, entrepreneurs in general point to sales and marketing as their biggest issue. Personal brand is a great way of getting sales and marketing. And so I was like, I'm going to try and position it there. I spent weeks and months looking at what entrepreneurs were saying online about their challenges and their struggles. And I was able to find 4 or 5 main takeaways. One, which was that they didn't know what they wanted to post about. Another was that they were not confident enough to post. And so I was like, okay, I need to create a product that deals with these 2 consumer pain points. So you want to then go and cross-check demand, use social media, and just do, as much research as you possibly can on your theory, your consumer change, the technology change, etc. And so I wanted to give you a bit of a sort of guiding light for coming up with ideas. So you want to try in your process of thinking of a business, you want to try and think about the problem. Try not to immediately push a solution into the hole. Try and think about a problem that you deal with every single day, or that a consumer might deal with every single day. And so, to give you an example of my second business, which is helps elderly people find care. Our business is called Lottie, and we have a marketplace that shows you where care homes are, shows you the fees. It's a bit like Airbnb or Booking.com for care homes. And now, that was the solution. However, the problem was that people didn't know enough about care homes during the search process. They didn't know enough about pricing. There wasn't much transparency around pricing and what you get. And so we knew that problem because we had that problem with our grandma. And so we weren't obsessing over the solution. We were, however, obsessing over the problem, which was lack of transparency, lack of ease, not being able to have any digital tools around, searching for care homes, not having any inquiry forms. And so we sort of then thought to ourselves, what is the solution to match that problem? And so people would say, it was a really good idea for the time and so on. And I would always say there were tools like it out there. And so onto our second point here, look for gaps in existing solutions. And so there might be an existing business or solution that's solving this problem. And that might be a slightly outdated one. It might be technologically behind. And I feel like as an opportunity and as an age group, we're so lucky that right now, technology and tools in every sector will change over the next 3 years faster than they ever have before. And that presents all of you on the call and myself and other entrepreneurs the biggest opportunity I've ever seen in entrepreneurship. And things like Lovable make it a baseline solution. We can spin it up, we can code it much faster, we can launch it much faster, and we can test demand. And so the third part here is focus on a specific audience. Now, I would say this is where most people will go wrong. They will say things like, my product would help everyone. My product is applicable to these huge markets. Whereas if you really drill down and you focus on a small group, and it doesn't have to be a small group in numbers, but a small group of society that your product can help, then you're going to make a product that is so much more apt and so much more focused for that specific type of the audience, rather than if you're trying to support everyone. And as you build your products, if you are focused on a specific niche and a specific audience, that audience will keep giving you feedback. Either immediately they will just choose to give you feedback, or you could ask for it, and that feedback will help you develop the product more and more towards solving their problems. Whereas if you try and solve problems for every single demographic and every single problem, you will end up creating a product that doesn't feel high value and high value add to the specific audience. And so it will lose its penetration. You can expand your markets later on, but my honest advice to everyone is, when you start your product and you think about your problem and your audience, try and serve them first as well as you possibly can. And they will be the initial group that are your community, that promote your product for you and feedback to you about what you need to improve. Now, I shared a quote earlier, which was about first-time founders think about the product, second-time founders think about distribution. So I want to really, really land and nail this for a second, which is, when I originally was building my businesses, I was very, very focused on us, on our business, on our product, on how it worked. Whereas nowadays, I almost think the complete opposite way. I now think to myself, and I did this last year, I thought, I have an audience with my social media. I have a big distribution, as it were, in the sort of entrepreneurship space. And so I thought, I already have the distribution, so I should make the product for the distribution. And so it's the first time in my life I've ever really thought like that. And to give you a bit of a rundown, my first business took 10 years to get to 10 million revenue. My second business took 4 or 5 years, and this last business took 1 year to get to 10 million revenue. And that's not because the business is exceptional necessarily. It's because I had razor focus on the distribution, which is effectively my personal brand and my audience. So I can test a product immediately, get feedback immediately, and put out content to millions of people very, very quickly. Whereas I never had that opportunity before. And so you don't have to do it through personal brand. You can do it through partnerships. You can do it through sponsorships. You can do it through creators and influencers. But think long and hard at the beginning as to why your content about your product would do well. Like, what is the content? What is the distribution? How are you going to get people to see what you're doing? So a few further ways that you can research. I would always say that when in the early stage of a business, people will often say things like, "We don't have any competitors," and I can tell you now that if you said that to a professional investor, that puts them off. That doesn't endear them to you. That doesn't make them think, "Oh, I want to invest in this business." That makes them think that you're either not good at research or the product actually doesn't meet an existing demand. And so what I want everyone to try and do is put together 3 direct competitors with your product or your business or your tool, and 3 indirect competitors. And so indirect could be a business that solves the same problem in a different way. So for example, you could have one company that let's say we're talking about lead generation for a second. You could have one company that does lead generation with the phones. They have a team of people that call lots of businesses. You could have one company that does lead generation over email. And then you could have a new company that's one of these new AI lead generation companies. So on my deck, if I was pitching for investment, if I was doing competitor research, I would include non-direct competitors because they serve the same demand. They serve the same problem. And so make sure that you are firmly aware of what's in the market and how you're going to serve your customer better. Now, customer interviews are probably consider them gold dust, quite literally gold dust. If you're able to sit down with some customers and ask them about the problem, about the solution, how they would want it fixed for them, maybe you're able to show them a mini prototype that you've whipped up on Lovable and you've put together. You want to be getting as much customer feedback as physically possible. And so to give you some context, in my opinion anyway, and people may disagree, in my opinion, the best founders in the world are the ones that in the early stages of their business will do one-on-one calls with customers hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Because the more that you're able to sit down with your exact customer and say to them, what's wrong with the product? How can I improve the product? What is it that you would like to see more of in the product? If we were adding this to the product, would you like it? And so for all of my businesses through the years, I've done the first 100 sales myself. And that means that as a founder, I'm very connected to my product, but it also means that I just get this absolute gold dust, which is what the customer want us to build for them. Then we come on to industry reports, which is what we spoke a little bit about earlier. You can get hold of these things. They are incredible. Obviously, I would say these days I'm much more AI native, so I will now take the reports. I will then add the reports to a custom GBT as uploads, and I will then have a custom GBT that's got countless incredible reports from McKinsey, Gartner, HubSpot, etc. And that for me will be a great sort of testing ground to ask questions and think about what customer change and consumer change and technological change there is. The other tools, which are a little bit more potentially expensive, are really good social listening tools. But to begin with, all I ever used, honestly, was Reddit and Quora. And I would just spend forever on these platforms looking at the sort of topics that I was building in. And so one of the early stages of launching the Creator Accelerator, I was on a Reddit thread, and it was just entrepreneurs who made a couple million a year being like, how do I get more business from my company? I want to build a personal brand to become a thought leader, but I'm really nervous. I don't know what to post about. And I remember reading every single post on this thread. And by the time I was done with that, I was like, I really understand the pain points and the problems that I need to solve with my content. Another one is obviously Google Trends is amazing. You want to be looking at keyword data. And this is obviously now, this is now becoming, LLM search is sort of becoming as important as Google search, as it were. So you want to be looking at search intent and search interest more than anything. So what are people looking for? What are they typing in? What is the solution that people are searching for on their own devices? And so I would want everyone to try and do this task for me, which is I want you to write down who your target persona actually is. And so before, at this point in my life, like I've invested in maybe 100 companies. I've helped found maybe 10 companies, and I've run 4 of my own. I do this exercise on day one now before I build anything. I write down who the customer is. And by doing that, I think it's a really good psychological experiment and directional push for yourself. So if you write down exactly who your customer are, then when you're thinking of marketing, when you're thinking of building the business, when you're thinking about anything, you think about the customer. And it just, you might want to give them a name, for example. And so one of the personas for my business at the moment is Frustrated Fred. And Frustrated Fred is an entrepreneur that is making a couple million a year. He might be making $2 to $5 million a year, but he's frustrated because he can't grow the business. He's sort of been flat for a couple of years. He wins clients, he loses clients. He struggles a bit with his pricing, so he's never able to charge customers as much as he would like. And so now, whenever I make content, I'm always making content for Fred because I know the problems that he has, the challenges he has, and so forth. So please, when you're thinking about launching your products and you're thinking about launching your businesses, like try and answer some of these questions. Try and get a sense of their age, location, profession, get a sense of their income. Think about the objections that they might give and they might, face before purchasing. Get an idea of their goals. Like, what are they looking to achieve? And get a sense of how they effectively use, how they shop and how they search online is really, really important as well. And so some key questions that I want you to put down. I mean, on the right-hand side is a very simple way of thinking, which is the problem exists, the solution works, and will people pay? And so I am what you would consider like a very traditional thinking entrepreneur, in that I actually don't like businesses that can't make money at the beginning. I'm not actually that for, raising money for businesses that don't make money. I know that's a huge thing nowadays in the sort of modern business context, and between angel investment and private equity and venture capital, it's quite big. Whereas for me, I like the mid ground of, if day one my business can make money, that is the most powerful thing in the world. And customers might like my product, but until they pay for my product, I don't consider them a customer, which is, I would say, quite a traditional viewpoint on business. So these are the questions I want you to answer. Who is your product for? What is the product? What problem does it solve? Why does the solution matter? What specific improvements will the customer experience off the back of the product? And which feature will get them there faster? And so on that last point, let's say that we're building a software tool. Let's say we're building something. Let's say we're building something on Lovable right now in Shipped, and we want to release it in the next couple of weeks. You want to almost pick the MVP, the minimal viable product, the most basic version of your product, but also the thing that's going to add immediate value to someone's day-to-day. So something that someone can play with and use that's going to deliver them value immediately. And by doing that, you will create what I like to call a really positive value exchange. And if someone is able to use your product, have a positive value exchange from it, the likelihood is that even for a startup, they will pay. And so I want everyone to please try and think in a traditional business sense, and that the most important thing at the beginning of your business is a product that delivers value and like positive transformational change to your customer, and that they are willing to pay for it. Because as time goes on, you can change pricing, you can change timing, you can change the whole product and service and business. Of course you can. But I think that real demand, in my opinion, is measured by who's going to pay. And so you need to think to yourself, out of this whole idea and product that I have, what is the thing that's going to give my customer value immediately? What is the feature that gets them there fastest? And so things nowadays are like, I don't know how many people on the call have been building businesses for a long time, but if you have, like I have, the thing that's most mind-blowing about today is the rate of change and the speed at which you can execute. And so a good example would be, when I was 21, which is a while ago now, it would honestly take you 3 to 6 months to build a basic software product. And on top of that, you would be probably having to build some of your own systems and solutions and so forth. By the time I was building Lottie, which is like 5 years ago now, so much of it was already built. We were using pre-existing tools and systems and softwares. And so we were able to get the product to market relatively quickly. I'd say under a month from starting to launching was our sort of timeline. And I remember at the time, if anyone knows Tom Blomfield, so he's now one of the partners at YC, Y Combinator, which is probably the most famous accelerator in the world. He was my first investor at Lottie. My brother and I went to him and we spoke to him at detail about the company. And he said, guys, I love it. If you can launch in 2 weeks, I will invest 100,000. And I remember thinking, this is Tom Blomfield. He's just, built Monzo, which is worth billions and billions. He said, if you can launch in 2 weeks, I will invest. And I remember thinking, how on earth can we launch in 2 weeks? And so speed is everything. We got a product live in about 4 weeks. Tom did invest in us. And within, honestly, week 2, week 3, week 4 of the website being live, we ran a few ads against it. We did personal brand content. We tried to drive as much traffic to it as possible. Within the first few weeks, the whole idea of what we were building changed. The whole idea changed. Like the technology, the features, everything about it immediately changed because our customers that started using the website were asking for different things every single time. And so we were like, we need to build this really detailed cost calculator, functionality. Instead, they just wanted a clear way to compare care homes. And so the first feature we built was the marketplace to compare care homes. And within 2 months, we had like steadily rising traffic for the business. We had revenue from the care homes and we had a working business immediately. And yet our product was probably a 1 out of 10. It had so long to go. And now 5 years later, that's the leading product in that market, it's the most used website in that market, and that business is scaling. But it's not scaling how we always thought it would. And so I want you all to sit there and think to yourself, okay, I need to test demand. I need to test consumer sentiment and consumer usage of my product. And so speed is everything in nowadays markets. And so I can talk about this in the sense that it's critical for your own product and your own business that you move fast. But if you have competitors, ladies and gents, these days, if you have competitors, they will be moving like freight trains. Because nowadays, if you're an AI native business, if you're predominantly built up of a team that understand that AI enhances everything by a multiplier that I can't even get my head around these days, then you will have to move fast too. And so speed and execution is better than perfection. So I want you to continuously think that you're pushing over a tiny domino, just an absolutely tiny domino, but there are millions of bigger dominoes ascending, and you want to start that momentum off. And for me, that is about launching, that's about launching wait lists. It's about launching MVPs. It's about gauging consumer demand. So get useful, real feedback within weeks, not months and years. And so a good example here, and it's like a nice, famous, great example here, is that Dropbox got 75,000 signups from a 3-minute demo video before they had built the product. And so they had a novel idea. They put it out onto a website and they said, like, we're going to give you effectively cloud storage for free if you sign up. And so trust me when I say, if you launch a product to 75,000 people on a wait list, you are going to be told everything you need to build in that product immediately. Like everything that you need, you'll be told. And so I like to call this pre-launch validation. And so I'll give you an example from last year. So I knew I wanted to launch, I'd done a lot of one-on-one coaching for personal brand and entrepreneurs. I knew I wanted to launch a group coaching business. And so what I did was I launched a landing page and I said to people, I'm going to allow 50 people to sign up to do this cohort with me. And you have to put a deposit down. I think it was $500 deposit. And if you're not ready, join the wait list. And so I just launched effectively a one-page website, which obviously Lovable wasn't around at that time. You know, I wasn't using it. And so I did this myself. I just put together a small landing page, and it maybe took a week and a half to get that landing page ready. And I built nothing else, zero, no content, no community space, nothing at all. And I had 67 people sign up who put down a deposit. And then I had hundreds of people sign up to entrepreneurs that wanted to grow personal brand. And so I was like, okay, there is a business here. There's some real demand here. And so I then went out to all of those people and I said, what content would you like me to teach you? And so instead of building the product myself, I just asked the people who had already put a deposit down and the people who were on the wait list, what would you like me to build? And so this theory and this practice of, waitlist testing, gauging demand, getting customer surveys, you can put a survey out, put a bit of, meta ad spend behind it. And people will tell you what their pain points are. People will tell you the products they want, or they'll give you feedback on your idea super quickly. And so I would rather you do this than you build an incredibly deep software product. Because what I want you to do is I want you to make money early in your business. And making money early in your business comes from your customer loving your product immediately. If your product isn't right on day one, you're going to struggle to get any form of development. And so I want you to think about some key metrics when you're launching your products and you're launching your business. Sign-ups, again, this is like the traditional side of me. But for example, I was just helping Lovable with a creator campaign around Shipped recently. And we've got all this like great data, like thousands of people looked at the campaigns and therefore, came to the Shipped website. The thing I actually care about most is signups. I care about like signups and payments, conversions. And the other thing I care about is retention. And so what do I mean by retention? Retention is essentially if someone uses your product and then churns off it. And so churn is the word that we use for when people leave your service. And so you want to be able to deliver someone value and deliver someone value fast. And then you need to, as you develop the product, think about reasons why people would stay on your product. And so these are kind of the two things that I'm focused on tracking within my businesses every single day. And so I like to obsess over conversion rates. And so conversion rate would be like traffic to the site, and then how many conversions you're getting from that traffic. And so you can work out your conversion rate pretty quickly. It's pretty much the only thing I focus on as a marketer. So like if I make a piece of content that gets millions and millions of views, I'll be like, oh, that's nice. But do I care if it's not driving conversions and sales to my business? Well, the honest answer is no. Like I don't. I'm much more focused on producing content that drives clicks, conversions, and ultimately sales. So try if you can. I understand there's always a temptation. There's a lot of dopamine involved in views and clicks and followers and all this sort of stuff. But I would implore you that the dopamine of those things wears off very quickly. And if the business isn't making money early on, you will put yourself into a situation where you have to raise money very quickly. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with raising money, ladies and gents. Like I've done it myself. I've raised 35 million before of venture capital. The thing is, when you get onto an investment cycle, as a lot of founders will tell you, it's very hard because you start spending much, much more. You start spending into the investment you've raised, and your investors will push you to spend. And so for me, I always love to be in a business where I can see tangibly the revenue as my most important thing. And that comes back to tangibly conversion rate is my most important thing to track. So validation success signals to look at and to think about, people being willing to pay for the thing that you build before you build it. And so a deposit was like quite novel in July last year, where I put up a landing page and got 67 people doing a deposit. That was amazing because it was 100% validation that the thing I was creating had high demand. Now the second one is users returning without being prompted. So in much the same way that Lovable is for all of us, like I'm just obsessed with using the tool. I just love using the tool. And so the very act of using the product, for me, it's fun, it's exciting. I get a lot of value from it. I get a lot of speed of iteration from it. And so, you know, the business doesn't have to tell me to come back to use the product. I am just using the product because it's useful to me. Now, word of mouth is, you know, one customer telling another customer, or it's one customer posting about you online. I saw that Kyle won the prize earlier, and funnily enough, like he's a dude that I followed on TikTok for ages because I just like his content. And so like he's the perfect example of he loves Shipped, he loves Lovable, he loves talking about it online, and as a result, the company benefits enormously from word of mouth referrals. And that there's clear demand coming from lots of different sources. And so I wanted to do a little thought experiment here for people around word of mouth. So when you think about your products, try and think about your products in a sense that almost pushes word of mouth. It pushes new customer adoption through the nature of using the product. And so, sorry, that might sound a bit complicated, but if you think about Zoom for a moment as a business, their whole business was based around a viral mechanic, which is that if you send me a Zoom link, I see Zoom. You know, the business itself, you send me the Zoom link, I'm like, oh, what is Zoom? Maybe I should use Zoom. And then the second you use the product, you're like, well, if the product is good, I've now discovered a new product by the very nature of the other person using it. Another great example of this is Loom. The same thing. If you're sending someone a Loom of a website, they then discover Loom at the same time as being educated on the thing that you wanted to educate them on. There are other ways of thinking about this though. So you think about a business like Canva maybe, or like any of these sort of collaboration tools. These businesses, by their very nature, allowed people to invite their colleagues and their friends to join their softwares. And so, you know, I remember when Canva first arrived in my agency business years and years ago, the first designer used it. He was like, this is great. Then he invited his colleagues to start using it. And before long, my whole design team was using Canva and no one was using Photoshop anymore. And it was because there's just an easy mechanic with which people have a very natural tendency to spread the word. And so when you're sitting there thinking about your product, I would think very long and hard about pre-validating demand, thinking about demand like we've been talking about today, thinking about your customer, thinking about how I test that demand with a landing page or whatever. And then the next part is, why is my product going to market itself? Why is my product going to market itself? And so can you think about different ways that your product will naturally market? And so I wanted to finish this section here with just another example of a naturally growing organic product. So I use a email system called Kit, and in Kit you can refer your audience to your friend's newsletter, and they can do the same thing to you. And so when my friends started using Kit, they were like, Chris, you should also use Kit because then we can refer you traffic. And so they've almost got this viral mechanic built into the actual software itself. And so when you're planning your product, please think about that, because that will be highly valuable to you the more you try and scale. If scaling, as in growing and getting customers and getting demand, is expensive, your business will always struggle to grow without funding. Whereas if your business every customer it acquires tells one more customer, the cost of scaling and growing your business is much, much less. So a couple of other real examples of landing pages and like basic ideas of testing demand from the ones that we know, like Tesla and the Cybertruck waitlist. Think about that. I mean, Tesla, whether you love or hate Elon Musk, or whether you love or hate Tesla, the waitlist for the Cybertruck was brilliant. They put out this crazy announcement that they were building the Cybertruck, and they had 500,000 people sign up for a waitlist to buy the product. And that should never be understated how powerful that actually is for that business. And so that was before they built the fleet of Cybertrucks. Whereas if no one had signed up to the waitlist, do you think that Tesla would have focused on building Cybertrucks? So what they did is they pre-validated the demand and then they built to the demand. Very smart, in my opinion. Sorry, I started on the bottom here. But I like the idea and the story behind Buffer, which Buffer was actually made by a guy from my university. And it was a way of scheduling your social media posts. And he made a landing page explaining the concept and got a wait list. And then another good example of validating demand. Does anyone remember when Slack arrived? Now, I was running my agency at the time, and we used to use email to communicate, I think. And suddenly someone was like, oh, I just Slacked it to you. And I remember downloading Slack, and before long I was like, oh, we're all using Slack. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. It was an internal tool first. It was being used internally by companies before they released it. And so again, that's another way of testing it, is like, just get a group of people together that you know to start using the product. And that will be a very basic way of validating it. And the last thing I'll say on Slack, which I think is always one of the most genius things that they ever did, was the product itself marketed itself. Like every colleague would invite their colleague to use Slack. They would have channels. And so within 2 or 3 weeks of using Slack, your business would be running on Slack. And then Slack would say, to access your information that's more than 2 weeks old, you have to pay for Slack. And so it was like the perfect delivery of a software into a business, because everyone was using it. My whole team was using it. It was, spreading the word of Slack continuously. But then when I said to the team, make sure that you send that client report, they were like, I can't access it because I can't access any data in Slack that's more than 2 weeks old. I personally think that was one of the most genius entries into a business ever. And so the way that they think about that is early on, how is the product going to scale? So key takeaway from me, and I'm very happy to take all and any Q&A on business, on validation, etc., is validate first and build second. And so I'm a big fan of MVP thinking. I think the Lean Startup is a brilliant book. I think that Y Combinator is an amazing place to get information from. You want to build light. You don't want to spend forever building really complex projects or businesses. You want to build light and validate the demand. And so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to take all and any questions that I can from the audience.
And I'm back. I'm going to find questions for you. So please, everybody, thank you. Yes, I'm back. Woohoo! And I'm going to find questions for you. So I do know we have a couple of questions here in the chat, and I'm going to share them on the screen for you.
Interesting. So how do you balance the idea of a customer can tell you what they want with the idea that the customer has no idea what they want? So in startup land, people refer to two really famous examples here. They say Henry Ford says, if I'd asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse rather than a car. However, I would say, and Steve Jobs was a bit like that. He would predict what the customer wanted rather than asking the customer. Now, there are very few entrepreneurs truly that are like that. The rest of the entrepreneur world and market are, I listen to customers and I create products based on what I've heard. And you're sort of working towards the customer demand. And so I would personally say that I don't know many people who are in the Steve Jobs, Henry Ford category. And to think that you are first time round would be the wrong expectation of your own skill, in my opinion. So yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Kip says again, how did you get the reach to be able to ask people to get on the wait list? Personal brand. That's chicken and egg problem, I think. I mean, sure, but 2 years ago I had 0 followers. And so 2 years ago, I began the process of building my following because I believe so strongly in the idea of validating an idea. And so personal brand for me, I think, is a huge unlock for any business and any outcome. Now, obviously my first 3 businesses, I had no personal brand. And so to validate an idea, I would do things as basic as ask people on the street, email people. I would be on forums, asking people in the forums. I think as I got a little bit older, I put questionnaires out and I put a bit of meta ad spend behind them, maybe some Twitter ad spend behind them. And so the idea that you need a personal brand to validate an idea is not true. Of course, it's much easier if you have a personal brand. And so, but it takes you time. It's harder, to do both at the same time. So you can definitely validate without,
Great. If you have questions for Chris, please put them in the chat for him.
When validating, how do you avoid not being able to deliver on that promise? Not sure what that means. How do you avoid not being able to deliver?
I think over promising and under delivering. How do you avoid that?
So yeah, I mean, I think to an extent, right, your early customers and your early community are very forgiving of you and the business and what you're building. And so I would say that with my health tech business, in the first year, we were like new. We had raised 35 million. We were running at a speed of knots. We were trying to build the best products we possibly could. And we didn't meet our product roadmap. We didn't meet it. We were way behind it. And the care homes that we were working with were frustrated, but they understood the fact that what we were trying to do was super complicated, like really, really difficult. And we didn't get there on a couple of bits, but in pursuing it, we found other avenues that we did go down. And so I think early on, your audience and your customers will be very forgiving of you as a startup. Again, it's key as a startup to position yourself as a startup, to say that you're in beta, that all of these things I think are very important for the messaging. Can you recommend any user research platforms like User Interviews, Listen Labs that have a great B2B user pool? I mean, honestly, if you type into Google user interviews, user reviews, customer feedback, et cetera, you will get countless tools like this. I haven't used one of these tools for a while because I'm in a lucky position that I built my personal brand over the last few years. So I no longer have to rely on anyone to validate an idea. I have a 200,000 person newsletter. And so once you get that to yourself to that position, you don't need the external support. So I don't know which one is amazing right now. I do know with 5 minutes of Googling a little bit of ChatGPT, you will find 2 or 3 that are great. In marketplace type ideas, think like BetterHelp. How would you validate this as well? So my care home business was a marketplace, and so with a marketplace, you have the fundamental problem of chicken and egg. And there's an amazing book on this called The Cold Start Problem, because you're starting from a cold start, and it talks about the creation of marketplaces like Uber. And how you build both sides. And so how we did ours is we said to ourselves, what is the hard side? Like, what is the hard side to get? And so we went out and we begged and pleaded and sold to the first 50 care homes. And we said, if you trust us and you come with us and you work with us, we will bring you loads of qualified customers, like, the children of people moving into care homes. And so we got 50 care homes, we launched the website and we tested the demand. And very quickly we realized that the idea was validated, that people wanted to find care homes in that manner. So if you're building a care home, like, read that book. That book is literally gold. I've read it so many times. But that's how you do it. You start one side of the marketplace and then test the demand on the other.
Nice. And I put the link to The Cold Start Problem by Andrew Chin in the chat so that you can check it out. Okay, Chris, how many more questions can you answer?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, I will answer as many as I possibly can. I'm not on a fixed deadline. So let's say like 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
What constitutes an MVP? Where do you stop? I mean, there is no like hard and fast. There's no like specific ruling on this, but I would say that it's something that people can get value from quickly, and it's something that you can build in 2 to 4 weeks. I think that's a good one. Yeah. Chris, how can you secure early moats to be able to do the waitlist method without having people clone your product and build and ship within hours? Look, I mean, the game has changed with, effectively with vibe coding and with no code tools and so forth. However, the idea, and this is, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble. The idea is not the thing. The idea won't be the thing. It will be the execution of that idea repetitively every single day for probably 5 to 10 years. That will set you apart. Because if you're gauging waitlist, what you're actually gauging is you're gauging demand, and then you build to the demand. If someone cloned your idea, they won't have done that. And so, of course, like a lot of people are really panicked about the idea that people will copy their ideas. I would say the idea is far less valuable than you think it is. And so when I meet first-time founders, they're like, oh, I don't want to tell you my idea. I've got to sign an NDA. I'm like, okay, well, you don't get it. The value of the business is going to come in the distribution. And so I tell everyone my new business ideas months before I build them, because I know that if I take on a new business, I'm in it for 5 to 10 years. I'm going to grind it. I'm going to work every single day on it. I'm going to grow it. I'm going to out distribute my competitors.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similar questions about people worried about getting their ideas stolen, and how do you validate and share your ideas without getting them stolen. So I'm glad you answered that.
Where do you stop an MVP? How do you avoid the trap of building out the entire product? I mean, like I said before, I would say it should do a specific function. So pick the feature that you think is most exciting, most sexy, most immediate value exchange. And so you will know, by the way, the MVP, Lovable is a great example, but when you have product market fit, you feel it in that the pace is so fast and there is so much going on that you're like, we have product market fit. If you're not in that position, then you need to keep tweaking to find demand. Like, you want your customers to love your product. You want your customers to really demand it. And so only build out what the customer is asking you to build out, and make sure that the product that you initially launch on the MVP that they did love, make sure that's as good as possible. How do you know when you've truly validated the problem? Is it when a specific member of users are willing to pay for the product? Any framework to help with this? Yeah, like I said in the talk, I'm traditional, like I'm old school. If people are paying, I'm like, cool, we got ourselves a business. If people are signing up for a free product or a free trial or something they can churn out of quite quickly, I'm always a bit like, I'm not sure, but I am traditional. Like, I'm 34, I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, my viewpoint is like money in the bank means they want the product and that they value the product. And so the framework for me is like, if they're a genuine customer. What is the biggest mistake you've personally learned from when building products? Thank you for this amazing opportunity. Thank Lovable. I'm just supporting. So the biggest mistake would probably be the one I spoke about earlier. We built our whole product, every single feature and function of that whole website when I was 21, and the customers didn't want any of it. They just wanted one feature. And so this whole website went to waste. Like, I spent tens of thousands building it. And so the mistake was not validating the idea. I mean, it's funny that I'm talking about this today, but it's something that I believe in very, very strongly, which is test the demand.
Nice. So this question, I think, will probably apply to a lot of people because Lovable has all different ages and all different use cases and levels. So how does someone really young validate an idea?
My kid is 9 years old, who is entering the vibe coding space. Oh, I love it. I mean, it's just so cool that you can start so early now. Okay, so how does a 9-year-old validate an idea? Well, I mean, if you're helping them and supporting them, then I would say that the theories are pretty similar. Like, you can you could very easily make a landing page with a wait list, or a micro function, and then you could put a few Facebook ads out and send a couple hundred views to that page, and it might cost you, $50, $100, maybe a couple $100, and to test that idea. And like, to be honest with you, youngsters are incredible at understanding content on Instagram and whatever. And so, like, a friend of mine a few days ago, like, made an auto content generator for Instagram. And so they're just like auto generating, posting content. And he's like 18 or 19 or something. So you can do these things now to test demand much quicker than you used to be able to.
Nice. Awesome. So I guess we can get ready to wrap it up, and people would love to know, how do we stay in contact with you? How do we engage with you?
Let's say, how do we connect? How do we contact him? Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I post content almost every day. So you won't miss me on most channels, but I suppose LinkedIn is the one that I'm probably most active on. I post every day on LinkedIn. And if you want depth, I would always say that the newsletter is the thing I enjoy most writing on the weekends. So I write a newsletter called Step by Step, which I send out every Sunday. And it's primarily aimed at how to, improve yourself and improve your business, and, tangible stories and lessons from my own experiences of doing this for what feels like forever. So, yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any final words to say to our builders? This was the very first lecture. I think you were a fantastic lecturer. You had some really great insights for everyone. So if you could just have some encouraging words for everybody starting on this journey, or maybe they're rethinking their idea now and like, oh, maybe I should validate this before I spend, the next 6 weeks building something that nobody wants.
I would say that what I think has happened with social media and content these days is it's made the idea of success feel like it's around the corner, feel like it's something that happens in weeks and months. My honest, I've interviewed on my podcast lots of billionaires before. I've met countless multimillionaires, big entrepreneurs. Really great success is built over 5 to 10 years. So prepare yourself. I mean, really great success is 10 to 20. So prepare yourself for quite a journey. And every mistake and failure that you make will be the making of the thing that you do. And so my view on life is always keep putting in the time, be super honest with yourself and everyone around you, and experiment daily. I really want to, hear from you all in a couple of weeks' time how it's going. But the opportunity that you have with Shipped is like nothing I've ever seen. I've never seen an opportunity like this for new builders. And so dig in, like, make the next 6 weeks of your life be the 6 weeks you look back on and say, that changed my life. So dig in. Big good luck from me. And thank you very much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please join Circle. It's at the QR code in the top left if you haven't already. The replay of this live stream will be here, as well as Chris's oh my gosh, brain fart. Chris, what is it called? The thing you were sharing?
The Creator Accelerator?
No,
the Step by Step?
No, the thing that you shared your screen. Presentation. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. So I get that. The slideshow presentation.
Yeah, we can share that, yeah.
Oh, it's lunchtime here. Okay, yeah. I'm hungry. But those will be shared in Circle. Thank you so much, Chris, for being our first lecturer. Again, you are wonderful. And goodbye, everybody.
Take it easy. Bye.